CERAWeek by IHS Markit wrapped up last Friday. Now, I didn't get around to doing my day 4 and day 5, so this is kind of an overall summary. So 3 things after a great week, a long week, but a great week. 3 things: innovation, cement, and carbon capture. First one, innovation. I spend my time primarily looking at new technologies, new innovations. And while the focus of the conference was obviously a lot of strategic sessions, in the Agora, they covered a lot of different technologies and innovations. So the level of innovation has not slowed down. And I was particularly keeping an eye out on new materials, what people are doing around making new ways of making solar panels, membranes for carbon capture, for all sorts of processing. You know, the innovation hasn't slowed down, and be that digitalization in terms of what, you know, the likes of AWS are doing with their data platform for oil and gas, what people are doing around AI, what people are doing with drones, both flying around, crawling around, walking around for autonomous operations, and. So innovation right across the board, mechanical engineering, you name it, has not slowed down. So that's a good thing. Second one, cement. We talk about decarbonizing some of the industries that are hard to decarbonize, and cement is normally one of the ones that pops up. We use a lot of cement worldwide. So there was a company called Solidia, and what they were explaining was that they have a new, let's say, cement formula. And by using their formula, then you can actually, when you're creating the cement in the kiln, it's done in about 24 hours instead of days or weeks for some other processes. The other thing is that, again, because of the way their material science, you use less heat. So the overall energy cost of creating the cement goes down, and you use less days. And the third piece of the puzzle was that as they're making some of their ready mix products and precast, then they're pumping CO2 gas through the actual cement. So the cement that you actually see laid out or used is actually a carbon sink. It stores carbon. Now, it just goes to show that there are different ways of approaching the problem of emissions. So that's different. And the last one, third one, carbon capture. That was probably my biggest aha coming away from the week. And what I mean by that is almost every company, Occidental, Exelon, BP, Shell, Petronas, Siemens Energy, you name it, everybody is looking at different carbon capture type technologies and have pilot projects. Probably the closest thing to commercial viability right now is some of the enhanced oil recovery that happens in some of the oil fields across the globe. But it came up again and again in that the technologies, a lot of them are there. They need a lot more investment and work to make them commercially viable. But it kept coming back to the thing that there's no business model for it today. So then that revolved around the whole thing about, well, should there be a carbon price, carbon tax? How do you enforce that? How do you make that common across the entire planet? Because if one country does it and somebody else doesn't, then they're at a competitive disadvantage. So it went around in circles and all this stuff. But my personal opinion, you know, 80% of the world's energy comes from fossil fuels today. Now, I'm a big believer in everything renewables. But we're not going to stop using oil and gas tomorrow morning. And in fact, we may not for many, many decades. For the petrochemical industry, we use oil and gas and fossil fuels for other things than just energy. So we have to reduce the emissions, either as we're pulling it out of the ground, as we're using it, or afterwards with things like direct air capture. So my big takeaway is carbon capture, utilization, and storage. It's almost a must-have. But the usual thing, the technology is probably the easy bit. It's getting the business model around it and the political will for folks to push it through. But one fascinating week. So thanks, CERAWeek, and all the speakers. I was 8,000 kilometers away, but it was a fascinating week. And hey, hope to see you in Houston next year.